All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lennon Keppen, they, them. I'll be leading today's service, so we will go ahead and get started. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here with little children or your partner or alone. We joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome here as you are. Next, we will move forward with doing a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, and Anishinaabe people who share the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. Next, we will move forward with our chalice lighting, and I would like to ask my good friend Sean Rieger, pronouns he, him, to come up and assist me with the chalice lighting. Here you are, holy in this space, standing on this ground that is holy, because you are here. You are here in flesh and bone, filling up this body that belongs to you alone. Your pumping heart is a wonder because it keeps you alive. Your heart, loving heart is a blessing because it keeps all of us alive. The spirit of love has a home in you. May we all see that love in you and let our hearts become mirrors for the compassion at your core. The spirit of justice has a home in you. May we light our wicks from one another until we are all aflame, until we burn out every prejudice we carry in these bones. Here you are, holy as you are, blessed be. And next, Cheryl will lead us in our opening hymnal today. If you would turn to page 318, and your grace singing the Living Tradition hymnal, and we'll be singing We Are One. Oh, excuse me, We Would Be One.
To that
so much for that beautiful opening song, Sherilyn. And now I'm going to read an opening prayer. And this is We Are Love and Beauty, a poem by Laura Kunkel. We are love and beauty, real love that stretches to encompass our human valuability as we all have. We are love and beauty, resilient love that unfurls to create and support our vulnerability we need to thrive. We are love and beauty. Fierce love, fierce beauty, fierce enough to stay in tough and reflect reality. We are love and beauty. We are beautiful, smart, and strong. We are love and beauty. We are fallible, whole, and vulnerable. We are love and beauty. We are here right now. We are love and beauty. We matter. Blessed be. All right. Next, we will move forward with our offering, and Sherilyn will be leading us in Thank You for Your Loving Hands, which is in page 25 in your Open Your Heart Songbook. And hopefully most of us that are familiar with that will know the words, and then we'll go ahead and pass around the basket. If you are a visitor here today, your presence alone with us today is enough. But if you'd like to give a donation, I do suggest you give that to the Montana Gender Alliance, which is a fabulous local support group that does a lot for our trans and gender expansive communities. Thank you. All right, good morning. Can everyone still hear me on the mic? Perfect. I'll try to hold it up as best I can. So now we are at the Story for All Ages. So I welcome all little and big kids, all are welcome, and our Story for All Ages.
Going and nothing is under it.
We'll go on with that, no worries. My apologies for that, folks. We're trying to work through some technical difficulties, but we will go ahead and we will move forward without our display. All right, so our story time for all ages today is My Shadow is Purple, written and illustrated by Scott Stewart. Can everyone see the book okay? Perfect. My dad has a shadow that's blue as a berry, and my mom's is as pink as a blossoming cherry. There's only those two choices, 2 or 1, but mine is quite different. It's both, and it's none. If there's a straight, mine is a circle, for my shadow's different. My shadow is purple. My shadow loves playing with all sorts of toys, things that are loved by girls and things that are loved by boys. I can dance with the pinks as they turn and they spin, and then play sports with the blues as they lose and they win. Some of my friends think I'm simply confused, but the thing I love most is not having to choose. Some tell me I'm blue because only blue can be strong, but my mom's strong too, so I think they're wrong. Some tell me pink is the most caring, but dad's always crying and loving and sharing. Why can't I love sports and dancing and trains and ponies and glitter and engines and planes? Why must I exclude all of the rest? I choose both because both is best. And now is the time for the greatest events. The school dance is here. The invite's been sent. That is a very gendered school dance invitation. Everyone see all the very, very gendered symbols on the front of that flyer? That's something we should, and all effort, avoid to make sure we're creating inclusive spaces for our gender expansive community. I'm ready to rock and I'm feeling cute. My mom made my skirts and my dad made my suit. I bounce to the door and I gasp as I enter. The room split in two, right down the center. Blue shadows go left, pink shadows go right. Once we're split up, we'll kickstart this night. Everyone laughs as they head to their zones, and I'm right in the middle. I'm left all alone. I look to the left where the shadows are blue. They wave me over saying, "You are blue too." Then I look to the right as I struggle to think. They call me over. "Come on, you're pink." The teacher walks up looking rather amused. "I know you are different, but now you must choose." My heart just starts racing. Tears fill my eyes. I know I must choose, but I don't understand why. The room has gone quiet and everyone's looking. My cheeks are red. They feel like they're cooking. If I cannot be purple, then I cannot stay. I'll leave, go home. I quietly say. I slowly start walking. My legs are like jello. A voice breaks the silence. My shadow is yellow. My eyes open wide. My shadow, it gawks. A child walks in the middle, looks up and talks. There's more than two colors or shadows can be. I was too scared before, but blue is not me. I know from the outside blue fits like a glove, but my shadow's yellow, which to me feels like love. They turn with a smile and take hold of my can. Who wants to join us? There's room here to stand. At first no one moves, then there's a hand in the air. My shadow's as brown as a big grizzly bear. My shadow is red, mine's silver, mine's green, mine's violet, mine's aquamarine, mine's orange. They all rush to join us, whatever their color, blue, pink, purple, and shadows called other. I look at each shadow, no two are the same. On each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each is different and special and fully unique. No color's stronger, no color's weak. The teacher comes over and will join as one. Whatever your color, start dancing, have fun. All right, so we're at the end of the story. Thank you so much for joining. So I think what we took from today's story is allowing folks to present however they choose and identify however they choose. And sometimes all it takes is just one person to come out and be brave, and that creates spaces for other folks to feel like they can be their truly out and authentic selves. So anytime we can create spaces for our gender expansive community to feel open, accepted, and loved as they are, we have a duty and as a UU community to do that for our transgender and gender expansive community. All right, do we have any children that we need to sing out today? Doesn't look like it. If we're gonna have all kiddos that are gonna stay in the service today, we will go ahead and I'll move forward with my message. Just give me 1 second to readjust the mic, and then we'll just make sure that everyone can hear me. All right, just doing a quick sound check. Can everyone still hear me? Thank you. Let us speak today, not of sorrow, but of the joy and the many infinite possibilities of gender. First, I want to read some text today from the book Beyond the Gender Binary by gender nonconforming writer, performance artist, advocate, and public speaker Alok Van Menon. Alok is a community leader who advocates for the world to move beyond the gender binary. We want a world where boys can feel, girls can lead, and the rest of us can not only exist, but thrive. This is not about racing men and women, but rather acknowledging that men and women are but two of many stars in a constellation that do not compete with one another, but amplify one another's shine. Gender is a story, not just a word. There are many ways to be a woman as there are women. There are many ways to be a man as there are men. And there are many ways to be non-binary as there are non-binary people. This complexity is not chaos. It just is. We do not need to be valid to be universal, to be valid. We should be able to decide what the clothes and the colors we adorn, the bodies we inhabit, and the people that we love mean to us. There should be no boys' clothes or girls' clothes, just clothes. Separating gender from norms creates an infinite possibilities for us all. We get to narrate the bodies and experiences and interests mean to us. Without the gender binary, there will be no more restricted definitions of women and man, masculinity and femininity. Instead of just your definition, one of many. Objects, emotions, careers will not be masculine or feminine. They will just be adventuresome or compassionate. We will develop more precise language to describe ourselves and the beauty around us, with more just practices to respect ourselves and one another. Imagine how beautiful it would be if the way we navigated the world was about creative expression, not about conforming to arbitrary binary gender norms. If I can leave you with just one question from today's service, how are you contributing to upholding outdated binary gender norms, and what are you doing in an effort to stop contributing to a gendered binary worldview? Smashing the gender binary doesn't just create safe spaces for the gender expansive and transgender community. Everyone benefits when we don't have to uphold outdated binary gender norms. Today, I am speaking about transgender and gender expansive joy. The first time someone called me by my first name, Lennon, I cannot describe the joy I felt in that very moment. Last month, I attended a work conference, and somebody made a compliment about my presentation, and my boss said, "I know, aren't they so stylish?" And the simple act of being seen and being affirmed gives me immense joy. I was recently asked about my own coming out journey, and how did I come out, and when did I know that I was agender non-binary? It was through the art of drag, as a drag performer, that I explored my gender presentation and came to understand that I didn't feel a connection to my gender and sex assigned at birth. I spent years struggling to put myself into a binary gender box. I spent years scrutinizing how I presented myself for other people's benefits. The art of drag allowed me to question the purpose of upholding binary gender norms. The art of drag allowed me to express myself through my clothing and my makeup and storytelling. Shy Lennon came out of the shell. The euphoria I felt was immeasurable in smashing gender norms through the art of drag. In January of 2022, I was watching an episode of Queer Eye when Javen, the non-binary beauty expert on the show, made a statement that resonated with how I felt. Javen's representation and how they are so authentically themselves allowed me to realize my own truth. I identified as gender expansive. Looking back, I realized that most people I know who identify as cisgender don't question their gender. I wish I had come to my truth sooner, so that I could experience that feeling of immeasurable joy sooner. This month marks the year anniversary as being partially out as agender non-binary. I actually came out to my family, immediate family, in March of 2022. On March 31st of 2022, I affirmed my name of Lennon Keppen. And then I came out to this space and other supportive people in April of 2022. I was mostly socially out as agender non-binary in June of 2022, and then I actually came out in my workplace environment and experienced tremendous amount of support in August of last year. And for every non-binary and gender expansive person, their journey is different. Today I'm just sharing my gender expansive gender identity and journey to coming into myself. But for me, I didn't want to live one other moment not being my truly authentic self. And so in late summer of last year, I actually was able to legally change my name to Lennon Keppen. Thank you. Nowadays, it's so much easier to take off the makeup and just be Len. I'm happiest when I just get to be seen as Len, the person who's just trying to make their mark on the world and just be a supportive person to the people that I love. Every day since I came out as agender non-binary, the world feels a little brighter. The metaphorical weight of carrying a gender that didn't fit has been lifted. In this current political climate, it can be difficult some days to feel trans joy. I want to read some text from the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, for my trans siblings who are struggling with the current political climate. Trans joy is the most necessary when it feels the most impossible. When forces larger than us try to break our spirit, we can respond forcefully and effectively with joy as we can with anger, defiance, and protest. Trans joy in particular can be revolutionary in and of itself. But it's precisely the joy we must muster that each of us needs to fight back. There's a stark difference between naive optimism and conscious, purposeful joy. A blind trust that everything will turn out fine as a deadening stance for any movement to take, particularly the fight for transgender equality, whose gains are recent, shallow, and unfortunately fragile. But so too does cynical and pessimism kill the motivation to action. Neither progress nor defeat is inevitable, and buying into either myth can make the motivation needed to fight for real, lasting change difficult. Trans joy, in particular, can be revolutionary in and of itself before and after leaving the closet. Many trans people are surrounded by alarms about the dangers we face, some real, some imagined, and some more telling about cisgender people's anxieties that they are of the actual risk that we face in the world. Countless headlines about violence, suicide, and discrimination combined with the false narratives of anti-trans activists suggest our lives outside the closet will be little more than misery, subjugation, and regret. Even when grounded in a desire to address the material harms transgender people face, however, there are one-sided narratives about the trans experience that can end up reinforcing a status quo which is hostile to our existence. By transgressing or breaking the gender boxes so much of our society treats as sacrosanct, the misery of trans people can feel like a fable about the ills that befall people who question gender norms and expectations. This mythology is weaponized against our progress, suggesting it is too costly, too difficult, or altogether impossible. But the suffering of transgender people is a policy choice disguised as an inevitability. This is why our joy is so indispensable as a fuel for our action, particularly when the news of the world only seems to grow dimmer and darker. It is more critical than ever to prove that transgender joy is a reality within our grasp. To prove that with the right material and social support, our lives can be fulfilling and meaningful as anyone else's. That even when forces larger than us try to break our spirit, we can respond as forcefully and as effectively with joy as we can with anger, defiance, and protest. This is hardly a lesson that many transgender people need to learn from. Even amid an unparalleled assault on our rights, the number of trans people comfortable enough to live openly is constantly growing. The future of all transgender rights is absolutely uncertain. We must be clear-eyed about the many growing threats we face to our safety, dignity, and liberty. But within the uncertainty, there's also a chance for hope. Darkness is an opportunity for your own light to shine even brighter. How can we, as a transgender and gender expansive community, find joys in sometimes dark days? I find joy on some days in wearing a dapper bow tie that matches my outfits. I find joy in snuggling my kittens, who affectionately know me as their Len, which is the gender-neutral term I came up for my cats to refer to me as. I find joy in getting on stage as my drag persona, Holden Oliver Love, and entertaining an audience. I find joy in getting a affirming haircut and having a work customer at a recent conference compliment my hair color and tell me that it brings them joy. I encourage my transgender and gender accepting siblings who are listening into the service to find ways to affirm the joy you have in being gender expansive. I want to talk next about how any allies in the room can be an accomplice in creating safe spaces for the transgender and gender expansive community to have transilient joy. The Unitarian Universalist faith honors diversity of genders and the gendered experiences. The Unitarian Universalist Association published a resource page that offers ways that we as UUs individually and Big Sky UU can increase our welcome and inclusion of gender expansive and transgender people. So first, let's talk about ways that individuals can be affirming and welcoming to our gender expansive communities. First, avoid making assumptions about someone's gender identity or pronouns. Don't assume somebody's gender identity or pronouns based on how they present themselves. You cannot assume how somebody identifies based on how they dress, how they speak, and how they present themselves to you. Number two, respect a person's identity, self-label, and respect a person's affirmed name and affirmed pronouns. Practice offering your own pronouns when you meet new people. Don't be scared if you're not 100% how somebody identifies. Transgender, non-binary, and gender-fluid individuals deal with a lot of bias, misunderstanding, and being respectful, asking someone what their pronouns are goes a long way in respecting that individual's affirmed identity. It is okay, sometimes missteps do happen, but understand it is hurtful to the person that you're speaking to, and remember that respect is a two-way street. Even if you find that it's difficult or that you feel that they, them is grammatically incorrect. If you are aware that somebody is out to you and they're out to other people, I do recommend that you also correct other people using the incorrect pronouns of another person. If you know that person is out to that individual and in a state to do so. And again, the last step that we can take individually is when we're meeting new people is to announce ourselves with our pronouns. For example, hello, my name is Lennon Keppen, and my pronouns are they, them. If you have an email, it is appropriate to use your pronouns on your email signature line as well. Number 3, do not assume that a trans individual wants to talk about trans issues and only trans issues. Engage them in a conversation and get to know them as you would any other person. Learn about transgender identities and gender diversity on your own time. And again, I'll make this very clear. Google is a free resource, and there's a lot of ways that you can learn how to be inclusive to gender expansive individuals simply by doing a common Google search. Number 4, recognize that the term transgender is not a sexual orientation identity. That sexual orientation and gender expression are different identities on the LGBTQ2S+ umbrella. Don't say lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender plus when you're only referring to sexual orientation. And it's also important to note that many people that gender identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community may have multiple identities. For myself, sometimes I use queer as an encompassing term for myself, depending on the space, because I do have multiple identities within the LGBTQ+ community, and in addition to identifying as agender, non-binary, and gender expansive. Number 5, do not out anybody who is part of the transgender or gender expansive community if you are not sure they're out to all friends, family, colleagues, individuals in the community, etc. Not all people in the community are fully out to all individuals in their life, and it is still also difficult to come out with family and in the workplace. Once somebody is out to you, feel free to ask them if they are out to other individuals in your life, so you can be sure that you can use the correct pronouns and correct the firm name depending on the space that you're interacting with that individual with. And lastly, with individual ways we can all be respectful is to use terms that can encompass all genders instead of just the 2 traditional binary terms. For example, use children instead of saying boys and girls. Instead of saying men and women, use the term people. And instead of using the term brothers and sisters, you might suggest to use siblings, kindred, or siblings of all genders. Next, let's talk about ways that our church as a whole and our fellowship as Big Sky UU can be more affirming and welcoming to our transgender and gender expansive communities. We can talk to our UU youth about gender diversity. We can provide all ages appropriate education around understanding one's gender identity and how gender norms play out in our society at large. Number 2, we can do continuing education to the congregation, specifically on transgender and gender expansive, gender diversity related topics. And I do have some ideas on how we might best approach that moving forward. And then lastly, add pronouns to our name tags. That is something that I've seen in other spaces. The last UU church I attended was able to work on a project to add name tags to our name tags. So that is something the board has discussed at our most recent meeting, and we are working on some plans to move forward with that idea in our congregation. If you have questions about that particular project, feel free to talk to someone on the board. The UUA says, as Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We affirm the diversity of gender, and we work to create communities where people of all or no genders are free to be themselves. They also recognize that transgender and gender expansive youth have particular needs and that there is more work that can be done to make sure our circle is open to each and every young person called to our faith. This is a part of our sacred work. And then UU, Side with Love, says, let's be clear. Our faith vocally, fiercely, and unapologetically affirms that trans people are divine and a beloved part of the human family. And no law, no political rhetoric can diminish the inherent worth and dignity of trans and non-binary people that is endowed from the moment of birth. And that can never, never be taken away. I would like to end my sermon today by saying to all of my transgender and gender expansive siblings who are here today at the service, who are watching live on YouTube or later on demand, I see you. I see your joy. Continue to share your joy. I love that you are here today in the world. You are sacred. You are divine. You are love. Thank you and blessed be. All right, so with that, I'm going to defer to Charlotte. Do you think we have a few moments in case we do have any questions? I know we got started a little late, but if we do have any questions, I will have the microphone. So if anyone would like to ask any questions about my service, would like to reflect on it, if you have any questions about the how to be respectful for transgender and gender expansive individuals, I think we do have time to do that today. If you have more complicated situational questions, I will say we have an excellent individual. His name is Sean Rieger, and he's with the Montana Youth Network, and he is also here to help with the questions. And then we will both be available after service to answer any more in-depth questions or have any more in-depth questions about my service today. With that, I will go ahead and see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Lennon, for educating us and sharing with us. I have a question. I hope that this is not disrespectful, but I have wondered, why is anyone else's gender my business?
That is a good question. Yes, I mean, it is important to be aware of people's genders because, you know, I talked about in my presentation that we inadvertently create spaces where we have a very gendered worldview. And for myself, because I identify as agender non-binary, I don't appreciate any terms that are specifically feminine of center. And so just some days based on how I present, it's very easy to just work into your speech using gendered terms just based on how I'm presenting on a particular day. And there's a lot of other gender expansive folks that, you know, may not present traditionally as what we think of based on their gender presentation, how you perceive them to be. And at the end of the day, every day a cisgender person has their correct pronouns and utilized, and for many transgender and gender expansive persons, that's not always the case. So at the end of the day, like, you can be the most respectful human in the world by just seeing somebody how they want to be seen and by using their correct pronouns. Does that help answer the question? Yes.
Thank you, Lennon, for your information. One part, though, confused me, and that is accidentally outing somebody by using what you think may be the appropriate pronoun, but if you don't know in advance what pronouns they prefer, it sounds like a time of confusion. What would you do?
Well, you know, that is a good question. I'm going to do my best to help answer that. And I know Sean is here. And actually, I'm going to pass that question off to Sean because I know he's dealt with a number of individuals that throughout their process and journey. And I can only speak on my experience, and I think Sean would be a great resource.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. It's a great question. And I think one of the key things is part of why it's important to ask folks their pronouns is because what pronouns they use or what pronouns they share may be different based on the situation and based on their comfort level. So even if you're with a group of folks that you know, for example, in a meeting, going around and asking people's pronouns gives people an opportunity to say, in this space right now, this is the pronoun that I'm comfortable with. And so it's always appropriate, even if you've asked someone their pronouns before, to ask them again. This gives you an opportunity to reevaluate what the situation is. And also if you know someone that comes out to you as transitioning or as transgender or non-binary, it's a great opportunity to say, you know, what pronouns would you like me to use in reference to you? And is that different in different situations? So that's a really great way to ask a question and use that way to build a relationship with someone. I will also say just real quickly on that subject is that for most trans, non-binary, two-spirit folks, the pronouns that they use do remain consistent. However, for some folks it depends on the day. But in general, if there's going to be a difference of what pronouns are safe to use for the individual, it's usually towards the start of them coming out in their transition. And so, you know, you'll be able to get really a feel on that based on building a relationship with the person.
Thank you, Sean, so much for that eloquent answer. That's way better than what I would have said. So thank you.
Thank you again, Lennon, for that really great sermon.
Can you move it just to the microphone out just a little bit so I can hear it on?
Okay.
Thank you.
One question, one of the things that I love about the transgender movement is busting so many gender myths and gender pigeonholes that have bothered me for so much of my life. But sometimes I struggle with, for example, like identifying people's gender and using their pronouns also feels like it creates gender pigeonholes that I don't want to be put in.
Great question. I'm actually going to have Sean, and then I might follow up. I think he's a great resource.
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and another question that I get asked is, you know, I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable when I ask them what pronouns they use. And I think that's the thing that's really important is that, you know, part of the trans, non-binary, two-spirit movement is allowing people to decide what is right for them. And so oftentimes, just by asking someone's pronouns, you're asking them, how can I relate to you in a healthy way that makes you feel affirmed? I think Lennon did a great job today sharing just how joyful it is when you get to hear someone's pronouns. But oftentimes, you know, asking someone's pronouns is different than specifically saying, what is your gender experience and what does that mean for everyone? And I think that's one thing that's really important when we talk about, and Lennon also did a great job talking about, is, you know, just as there's no way to be a woman, there's also no correct way to be a trans person. There's no correct way to be a non-binary person. There's just ways to be who you are, and oftentimes those labels that we use sometimes means that we're able to find other folks that have more similar experiences to us, you know, who may understand what it's like to identify as lesbian or bisexual, etc. But it also gives us an opportunity to say, we recognize that not every experience is the same, and that's the really valuable part.
Yes, Sean, thank you so much for that. And I think the other important thing that I want to just emphasize when we're talking about ways that we can be affirming and welcoming as individuals and as a fellowship, that the important thing is you're trying to meet that person where they are, you're trying to be respectful for that individual, that it is, and I find myself doing this myself with new people I meet as well. It's not about you, it's not about extending your experience, it's about making sure that person feels seen, feel loved, and feel supported. And I want to emphasize that our first principle says the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And then I believe it's our third principle, that says justice, equity, and compassion and human relations. And so that's what we're trying to do in creating a space that is open and affirming to our gender, transgender and gender expansive communities.
I forgot one other piece. I mentioned a lot of people have a question about, you know, not wanting to make other people feel uncomfortable when they ask their pronouns. Oftentimes, as Len was saying, you know, that is an opportunity to say, I want to see you and I want to respect you, and it's kind of a little flag or a signal for a lot of trans or non-binary or two-spirit folks that this is a safe space. So, you know, it's really having the opportunity to do both, to say, we recognize that you are a group of folks that have a different experience than some of the rest of us, but also share many similar experiences with all of us as people. But also to say, whatever your experience is, we want to see and recognize and value you as a person.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up our reflections and questions. But again, I will be here after service, and then we are working with the board to have Sean Meager come in to do a more in-depth training, question and answer session. So for folks that do want to have a little bit more education, because I know it's really hard to try to get that in like a 5-minute reflection, but just know that we are working on that, and so just be watching for more details on that. All right, and so with that, we will go ahead, and Sherilyn, if you're ready, we will move on to our closing song for today's service, which is number 118 in our Singing the Living Tradition. This little light of mine, and just as a personal side anecdote, this is actually a song I used to sing with my paternal grandmother. It was one of my favorite songs that we sung with her, and it was one that we sang at her funeral in 2017. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead with 118. This is one of mine. All right. I'm actually going to skip over our closing reading, and then we are just going to go ahead and extinguishing our chalice today. All right, so again, Sean's going to join me in assisting me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. All right. And with that, we are going to say goodbye to our friends on our YouTube streaming service. So if we have anyone that wants to do any joys or concerns for anyone that's not familiar with that, you have the ability to share something that's going on in your life, something that you want to share that's a joy for you, or if you have a concern